Hello everyone and welcome to the channel SK Economics. Today we will discuss the strategy for RBI Grade B DEPR 2022 Phase 2 exam. I hope you guys have checked your Phase 1 results and I congratulate all who have cleared Phase 1 and those who could not clear Phase 1, do not worry guys. Just try to identify the mistakes, the reasons behind why you could not clear Phase 1 and then accordingly make an action plan for the next year's exam. Now, for the people who will be appearing for phase two this year, so firstly, let us discuss the pattern of the phase two exam. So pattern is really simple. You have two papers. So paper one, which is of economics. So this will be of 3 hours, and this will be conducted in the morning shift. And then paper two is of descriptive English. So this is of 1.5 hours, and which will be conducted in the afternoon shift. So in paper one, in the economics paper, so basically, you will be provided an answer sheet, and on that answer sheet, you have to write the answers of the questions. The questions will appear on the screen of the computer. So from that, you will access the questions, and then you will write the answers on the answer sheet provided. And there is no word limit here. So I mean, you can write as much as you want, but of course, there is time constraint. That is, you have 3 hours. And now the economics paper is divided into two sections. That is section A and section B. So in section A, you have 5 questions from 4 economic subjects. So here the subjects will be from micro, macro, international development economics, and so on. In section B, 5 questions will be from Indian economy. Now, in total, you have to attempt 5 questions um, combinedly from section A and section B. And out of these 5, you have to pick at least 2 questions from each of the sections. So either you can do 2 questions from section A and 3 questions from section B, or you can do 3 questions from section A and 2 questions from section B. So this is the pattern of the paper one, that is economics. Now paper two, descriptive English, a really simple pattern. There will be 3 questions. So one will be essay, one will be précis, and the third will be reading comprehension. All right. Also, there is one more point that in the descriptive English paper, you have to basically type the answers. So the difference is that in the economics paper, you will be provided a separate answer sheet and you have to write the answers by using your pen. Whereas in the descriptive English paper, you have to type the answers with the help of the keyboard. So that is the difference, guys. Now let us move ahead and discuss in detail the paper one, that is of economics. And again, there will be 2 sections. So section A, 5 questions from broadly from these subjects, that is microeconomics, macroeconomics, international economics, balance of payment, growth and development. Now here you can include econometrics as well. I mean, uh, if you look at the past year papers, they haven't really asked anything from econometrics. They've asked just one question. They've asked just one question only, and that was also in the last year of 2021, and that was just a 5 marker. So I don't know if this is a signal towards the change in the trend. I mean, you never know that they may ask a 20 marker this time from econometrics, but so far, econometrics hasn't been the topic, the subject from which RBI asks questions in phase two. These are the major focus areas in phase two. All right. Now let us discuss the previous year questions which have come from these subjects. So I will discuss the subject-wise previous year questions now. So let us start with the microeconomics. Now here, if we look at 2008, so they asked two questions from micro, and in both the questions, a production function was given to you, and then several things were asked based on that production function. Now, if you look at this question, the question is not that difficult. They've asked some things which, if you read, you don't find these things difficult. So I would say a relatively simple questions. So 2 questions in 2008, but then if you look 2009, 11, 12, 13, no question at all from micro. In 2016, there was one question, but it was just a 5 marker and it was on the problems of lemon market. So yeah, one question in 2016. 2018 again no question, but then a big change. In 2019, a 20 marker was asked from micro. So it was basically you had to explain derivative loss with the help of a diagram, and uh, and then you had to consider different scenarios in which the supply is relatively elastic and relatively inelastic. Similarly, the demand relatively elastic and inelastic, and then you had to show the impact on the deadweight loss. So many graphs you had to make here. So a little bit lengthy question, uh, but not a very difficult one. I mean, very straightforward question, but lengthy. But you can expect lengthy questions because you have to do just 5 questions and you have 3 hours. And then in 2021, if you look, guys, two questions of 20 marks each. So total 40 questions, 40 marks came from microeconomics last year. So, the weightage of microeconomics the last 2 years, the weightage has increased. So in 2021, one question was on general equilibrium. So you had to derive the general equilibrium in the case of two consumers and two producers. And then there was a question on arrow impossibility theorem, and then there was a numerical. So that was a big surprise because RBI doesn't really ask many numericals in phase two. I mean, it asked so many numericals in phase one, but last year there was a numerical in phase two as well. So, and it was a very simple one. Uh, we were given a production function, and then we had to find out the labor and capital such that the cost of production gets minimized. And there were three different scenarios. So, fairly straightforward question and a numerical question. So, very scoring. So if we want to analyze micro, so I mean, firstly, very difficult to predict what question they can ask this year from micro, but certainly some key areas you can identify. That is, this production theory. So in 2008, they asked two questions from production theory, and then again in 2021 they asked a question of production theory. So if at all they want to ask something, they tend to go towards the production theory in microeconomics. So maybe there may be a question on production theory again. And then similarly, consumer demand theory also you can also do, because maybe they can ask something from consumer demand theory. And then if we look at the last 2 years specifically, so the general equilibrium, the question on general equilibrium. So basically, guys, cover welfare economics. So I think they can ask anything from welfare economics, and then the concepts associated with the deadweight loss. So, but again, these are just mere speculation, you can say. I mean, nothing can be said with certainty, but uh, we know that RBI has a habit of repeating the questions. So you never know, any of these, the questions which were asked in the last 2 years, they can repeat any of them again. So just try to cover these three questions. That is on deadweight loss, the general equilibrium, this arrow impossibility, and of course the production theory. All right, now let us move to macroeconomics. So in macroeconomics, uh, not much have been asked from macro. And if you look at 2008 to 2016, so nothing was asked. Zero questions were asked in this time period. In 2018, they asked a question. So basically, from 2018 onwards, they have, somehow started asking questions directly from macroeconomics. So in 2018, there was a question on why the long run aggregate supply curve is vertical. So I mean, fairly straightforward question. And then there was a question on AS and AD framework. Basically, you were given different scenarios, and then you had to find out the impact on price and output because of these scenarios. And then in 2019, again, two questions were there. One was a short note on money multipliers. So again, a very direct question. And then there was a question that how monetary policy as a tool can be used when, in the case of interest rate targeting and nominal GDP targeting. Uh, so, so, so these were the questions asked from macro. In 2021, they did not ask anything from macro. So what we can analyze from macro is that they do not have that much liking for macro, and if at all they can ask something. So guys, just cover all the theories of macroeconomics, that is the classical Keynesian, new classicals, the AS and AD framework, because if at all there comes a question, so the question will somehow be from these topics only. And don't forget to cover the questions which have already been asked. So these basically the questions which appeared from 2018 to 2019. So cover these questions, because you never know, they can ask any of these again this year. Now let us look at growth and development. Now growth and development is like there have been many repeated questions from this subject. So if you look at 2008, they asked this Weber's theory of industrial location. Now, I mean, you can of course categorize this from industrial economics. Now, in 2008, they asked this question. Then, if you look at 2016, so look at this, they repeated it again, exact same language. I mean, they didn't even change the language. So same question. So 8 years after 8 years, they repeated this. You never know. In 2022 as well, they can ask the same question again. Then in 2009, there was a short note on growth model. So I mean, very basic question. In 2011, so they asked this big model, Harris-Todaro model of migration, but they didn't ask the complete model. They asked just the short note in 2011. Then in 2012, they asked a detailed note on the solo growth model. So very important. And then they did not leave you with the solo model only in 2012. They asked the Harris-Todaro model as well. So again, basically they repeated the Harris-Todaro model, because in 2011, although they asked a shorter version in 2011, but still, I mean, they basically repeated this again in 2012. Then 2013, they asked the Lewis model, the Lewis model of unlimited supply of labor, and specifically with respect to Indian context. Then in 16, again, this we have already seen the Weber's theory of industrial location, critical minimum efforts theory. They asked this question in 16, and then golden age of John Robinson's model. Then again, 2018, once again, Harris Todaro. So three times they have asked Harris Todaro, and no one can stop them from asking this Harris Todaro model for the fourth time. So guys, just do not leave Harris Todaro. It seems to be one of the favorites of RBI. So just cover this and also cover solo, because solo they haven't repeated solo. So they might repeat solo as well. But if you look at the last 2 years, somehow growth theories, these growth models have lost steam in the last 2 years, and perhaps the place has been taken by micro, because we observed that in micro they asked one question in 2019 and two questions in 2021. So I don't know if there is a change in pattern, but still do not leave Harris Todaro, because they can ask Harris Todaro. It is their favorite. Now let us look at international economics. So 2008, they didn't ask any question. In 2009, there were two questions. One was, these regional trading blocks, that is, whether they are stumbling blocks for global multilateral trade liberalization. And then there was one very theoretical question on special drawing rights. And then there was a break of 3 years. Nothing was asked from international economics. And then 2016, they asked a question on the evolution of international monetary system after the collapse of the Bretton Woods systems in 1971. And then what are the features of the present international monetary system? So this is straight away from the Salvatore book. So there is a specific chapter which deals with the evolution of the international monetary system. Then they asked another one in 2016. That was a short note on Leontief paradox. So again, straightforward question, guys. 2018, a 20 marker they asked. That is here the tariff and the non-tariff barriers you have to explain, and then the three types of non-tariff barriers. So it was a slightly lengthy question, but yeah. So not just, so they ask questions not just from the international economics, the trade theories, but also from this tariff part, right, guys? And then in 2019, there was a short note on inter-industry and inter-industry trade, and another short note asked on Ricardian equivalence. In 21, they asked another short note on economic cooperation. So not much you can deduce from the international economics questions. Basically, what you need to cover is cover all the trade theories and prepare these short notes, because they have asked quite a lot of short notes from this subject. For example, the Leontief paradox. There is that Metzler paradox. then the immeasurizing growth. So these things can be asked in the form of short notes. And then this tariff part. So cover this well, because if you know this part well, you never know, they can ask a numerical as well from this tariff and non-tariff part. Okay, so now let us look at balance of payment. Now, guys, this is the most favorite subject of RBI, because you will see that various questions are asked from this subject, and I mean they have insanely repeated some specific questions from this subject. Now, in 2008, they asked this the views of Keynes and new classicals on the need for perfect capital mobility, then the risk associated with the free capital mobility, and then does capital mobility have any impact on monetary policy. Then in 2009, they asked that I mean the basic thing that an economy cannot simultaneously have this fixed exchange rate, perfect capital mobility, the autonomous monetary policy. That is the impossible trinity that you say in international economics. And then some Indian context as well. Then another question in 2009: factors responsible for the emergence of balance of payment crisis. And then we had to give some historical examples as well. Then another question on the development in the Indian balance of payment since the year 2000. So, guys, this can be asked, like you know to give out the trend of the balance of payment. What has been the trend of India's balance of payment? They've asked since the year 2000. They can ask since the 1991 reforms. Now, in 2011, one question was there on this full capital account convertibility, that is based on the Tarapur committee. Then 2012, no question was asked. In 2013, so exchange rate depreciation helps to improve the balance of payments. So basically, the J curve effect, they asked here, and then we had to discuss it in the context of Indian economy. Then, if you see, so they've asked in 2018, what is the impact of expansionary monetary and fiscal policy on the output and price in the case of perfect capital mobility and fixed exchange rate? Now, you have seen this question. Now, look at this question. Uh, this one in 2019. I mean, uh, you know, same, nearly the same question. And then in 2021. So this Mundell flaming model, I mean, this is apart from the Harris Todaro model of migration, this is one more favorite topic of RBI, because three times there was almost the similar question, and that too in 20 markers. So I mean, like it is a really a straightforward question. I mean, if you know like what to write in it, and they have this tendency to repeat this question, so do not leave this question out. And then there are some some short notes also they have asked. So on covered interest rate parity, again, the short notes also they have repeated. So here they ask interest rate parity, then again open and covered interest rate parity. So just prepare these short notes as well. And guys, do not leave anything from the balance of payment part that is given in the Salvatore, because I think they have asked almost everything from whatever chapters are there in Salvatore. They've asked about the evolution of the international monetary system. They've asked about the this model flaming model, these short notes and everything. So prepare this section well.